Hi, I'm Katie Moore, the Ironheart Mama. This workshop is homeschool planning for slackers. So if you have watched any of my other videos, you'll have probably seen the relaxed homeschooling for slackers, and that has a little bit of more of an explanation, probably not a really good one, but so basically what I'll say is, like, in our culture, everybody is like hashtag all the things. I don't agree with that. I think that that actually wears us out and burns moms out all over the place, especially like in homeschooling. Well, I mean everywhere, but in homeschooling, that is a often told story. So I don't think that we should be requiring our children to do all of the things. I don't think we should be doing all of the things, and I don't think that we should be holding other moms to those like unrealistic expectations and, you know, these standards that we have set. So I say slackers. So let's talk about that. Planning like a slacker. There's probably a couple reasons that you would be homeschool planning like a slacker. One is because you planned way too much last year. Last year you had like all of the things planned out, and like your whole year was stacked. You had field trips and you had all the curriculum and you had extra things and hobbies included and whatever all of those things were, and you had to abandon ship like midway through the year because you just had too much. It was overwhelming. It didn't work. Whatever the reason was, you need to pull back this year, like majorly. Okay, so that's one reason that you would be planning like a slacker. Okay, the other reason would be that you needed a break desperately. You enjoyed your break. I don't know, maybe you were binge watching your show. I don't know what the reason is, but you are not ready. You don't have that much time to be planning this homeschool year, and maybe you don't even have the ambition. Maybe it's both. Maybe last year you went overboard and that's why you needed the break, and that's why you're hesitant to, you've been procrastinating to plan this year. So those might be a couple reasons that you would want to plan like a slacker, okay? What I can say here is you need to like skip over the guilt part, okay? Whether you made a mistake last year or you procrastinated and you didn't plan your year together when you should have. And I know that some mom somewhere, like somebody that you know, probably has had her whole year planned out and it's all been perfect and her homeschool looks perfect and she tells you that it's perfect and all of these things. She's a liar, okay? She's just a liar. Okay, Karen? If your name's Karen, I'm not talking to you. It's a different Karen, okay? So, but really, like, we do this comparison thing, and that like adds on to our guilt. Don't compare your homeschool to anyone else's. Any mistakes that you have made in the past, learn from them, don't make them again, and move on, okay? So let's just like leave the guilt behind us. I think a lot of times that like actually comes into play when we're planning our homeschool year out. Now, I could be wrong, but I mean, that's definitely the case for me. I end up looking back and being like, oh, I did all these things wrong. And then I actually make it worse because I'm focusing on this enormous amount of guilt because I'm like, oh, I can't be a slacker. You can. Let some of these things go. Just show yourself, your family, and other people all that grace that they need. And like, let's just move forward, knowing what we know, doing what we do. Okay. The next thing that I will recommend to you after being a slacker, of course, and getting into that mindset is to prioritize. So talk to your husband. I would like pull him in and say, hey, let's like, you know, talk this out. What are things that we would say are a priority in our homeschool? So the first thing that you'll want to know is like, what is the one thing? What is the most important subject or topic that you want to teach your children, that you want them to learn? What is that one thing? In our homeschool, it's Bible. We take our faith very seriously, and so going through the scriptures and praying is our number one. So maybe yours is something else, like maybe you're a marine biologist and you want your children to know what you know and love. Then that's great. That is your topic. That's your number one. And so everything that you do, that will trickle out through. And that's the number one subject that you have. So pick your top. And that's something that you and your husband need to like, you know, work out. The next one will be, what are your basics? What are the few minimum requirements that you have for your family? So for us, it's been the 3 R's. After Bible, we say the 3 R's: reading, writing, and arithmetic. And like what that will be your basis, your foundation. So I mean, it could be pretty simple or it could be as complex as you need it to be. So reading, like if you're going to be choosing the same thing for like, a younger crowd or whatever, your younger kids. So reading, you could say anything from, a complete reading curriculum, or you could say, we're just going to do read alouds. Or if your kids are older, we're going to do classic literature. So that could be the extent of your reading curriculum or your that subject for the year. Writing, that could be a grammar and composition curriculum all pulled together already for you and get really down into it. That could be something that you choose for your writing. Or you could say, hey, let's write letters to grandma. Let's, I'll teach you capitalization, punctuation, and, whatever that is, just to teach them how to do that, how to write well. And so then there's arithmetic. So your math, your basic math curriculums, normally you've got 2 basic systems. You've got mastery, which means they learn a concept and they learn it well. So they're not moving on to the next before they know this well. Or you've got spiral that teaches the concept and then it adds a little bit, it builds as it goes. In our homeschool, we've done a little bit of both. We've had times where a student was just struggling in math, and so we did it mastery. So we just had her learn one at a time, and then we built upon that. So mastery, and then we ended up doing spiral. And so you know your child, you know what they're struggling with, so you know what you want for your homeschool. You'll say, if these are the most important things that like our basics, our minimum requirements, then, you can choose between those, and those can be as complicated or as simple as you'd like. So then the next thing would be priority. It might depend on the minimum requirements of your state. So we lived in New York, so we had quite a few requirements and reports due in all the time. And I could just say that you can do any type of schooling, from unschooling to classical, like traditional schooling methods there. You just have to know the requirements, know all the forms and the laws, and there are ways to do it well. So if that is a question that you have, I would love for you to contact me at some point and just, ask me how I went about homeschooling with such strict regulations. Now, we did not have testing up to the point that we were in New York, so testing is a completely different ballgame. So you know your state's requirements, or you should, because that's important, to know those things and then move forward accordingly. So prioritize. You've got your number 1, and then your basics and your minimum requirements, and then your states. So pull all of those together and come together with something beautiful. It's going to be fabulous, I promise. Okay, next, planning with your kids, for your kids. So one of the really interesting things is that for years I spent planning our homeschool year out without any input from my children, which is ironic to me now as I look back. It's sort of right up there with meal planning. We all eat, we all school together. Why would I be doing this by myself? I'm sort of setting myself up for failure when I'm not including them. I mean, it can be done, but having this be a family adventure, you want to include your children. You want to, well, I'll tell you what you want to do. So I'm using my outline here. Start off with, what is each child's favorite subject? If you get them talking about the one thing that they love studying, like their favorite class, their favorite thing to learn about, when you ask them that, and when they are able to, expound upon that, it gets them going. They get excited about it. Just watch their little faces light up with joy. It's really neat. So, and even the youngest kids can do this. So ask them what their favorite subject is. Next, what are each child's interests? So before you assume, I assume what my children's interests are, and then I find out differently, and I'm suddenly shocked. I don't know why. really, we need to be asking them, what is your, like, what are the interests that you have? What do you want to learn about? What do you love? When you ask them, you're able to add that to your homeschool and bring together that education that is made specifically for them. So ask them what their favorite subject is. Ask them what they're interested in. Then the next thing that you want to consider, and you can ask them, but they, depending on their age, they might not know. I'm going to take a sip here, sorry. What way do they best learn? So whether you have a child that does really well with textbooks, or one that does really well with just hands-on, or a child that does mastery math better than spiral, you know, what is each child's way of learning? What is the way that they learn best? Sorry, I lost it there for a second. Okay, and then ask them this, because one of my favorite things to do with homeschool is bring us all together. It's just, there's something wonderful about the adventure of it when we're all going together. So what is each child's like favorite subject to do together? What is their favorite topic to learn all together? So one of the things that we do is our holiday studies. I have a series, holiday studies for slackers. We take it super low key. We make it fun. We make it exciting. We're learning about our nation's history. Like holidays, nobody even knows what most of these holidays are. So we study it because we think it's fun. We love celebrating these holidays in the first place because it normally involves food, right? So we just add a little bit to it. We make it fun. We add videos, little books, activities, whatever it is. And we do that together. Bible, we do that together. My kids sort of love Bible class because we sit and we listen to the Bible on audio, and they color, and then we talk about it. All of us get a chance to talk about something. So it's a little less like lecture and a little more conversation, a little more involving them, letting them think and express things. So, okay, how many classes can you make multi-age subjects? So like I said, you can ask them what they like to do together, and then see how many things that it's possible for you to do together. The neat thing about multi-age classes is that younger students are challenged, are naturally introduced to the concepts that you might not have thought that they were able to think through. But because they're in an environment with older students, they're naturally learning these concepts earlier, which is a really neat way to look at, your homeschool to see the progression that your children make. So, and on the other side of that is older students are learning how to be patient and how to teach almost the younger students. And I'm just sitting here watching all of it come together. It really is beautiful to watch your kids work together. My kids normally spend a lot more time discussing things or just being involved than I thought was going to happen. I didn't imagine that we would learn so well all together. So I really recommend that if you can come up with multi-age classes, history class by reading through books and then talking about dates and events and things like that, or science, having them all, get together and do science-related activities. That's fantastic. Bible, history. Did I already say history? I think I already did. Latin class. My kids, some of my girls do Latin, and the younger ones just hear it. They're not necessarily walking around speaking Latin phrases, but they're hearing it. And so that's been kind of key in our homeschool. So multi-ages. Let me just quick recap on all of those. What is each child's favorite subject? What are each child's interests? How does each child learn best? And then what is your child's favorite subject to do together? And how many classes can you make multi-age subjects? Okay, so the next is the cost. we all know that there's always a cost to pay. It's either time or it's money. So why don't we go ahead and talk about in which ways you need to best fit this homeschool plan to you. So the first one I would say is short on money. I have been there so many years. Being short on money has been something that we have learned actually to appreciate because it stretched us in ways that and allowed us to become creative in ways that we would not have thought before. Now, we've been short on time, absolutely. I've got 4 children that homeschool, so all those different ages sometimes seem to collide together and just cause a little bit more chaos in my mind if I wasn't all set. Having a home, having a homeschool, it kind of demands on your time anyway, but sometimes we need to focus on one, sometimes the other. So why don't we just start with cost? Sorry, mom brain, rambling, bunny trails. You know how this is. Short on money. If you are short on money, the first thing you can do is what are some free resources that you can use? Whether you are going to the library, you are getting hand-me-downs, you are using online curriculum or free sites that offer whole studies or subjects or studies. You can find lots of things there. Excuse me. We have for years used hand-me-downs from friends or family. And we have used the library regularly. Even when we had the money, we still enjoyed using our library because there's so many amazing resources there. And then we also have used many online resources. Now, there were times that we didn't actually have a whole lot of internet access. It was dial-up at the time. And we also didn't have gas money even to get to the library. And no one had handed us anything down. So we did have years of that. So before you just automatically assume that I'm saying that those might work for you, they might not, and that's okay. So the next thing that I would recommend is if you do not have access to those things, teach what you know with what you have. So that could look like you getting out your favorite cookbooks and teaching your children how to cook. That could look like you getting out your Bible and just going through your Bible with your children and working through it in whatever way you know. What are some other things? I just had them. Science, we gardened. It was a necessity for us in order to be able to eat, and that was our science. It was our hands-on science. We learned about how plants grow and companion planting and all of those things. So these are topics that I'm passionate about. So when you are teaching your child things that you know and love, with things that are around your house, they're actually watching you live. This is like a life schooling type thing. So if you have any thoughts that, I can't homeschool because I don't have enough money for curriculum, I don't have enough money, to get these resources or whatever that is, that's not true. You have been given these children for a purpose, and the knowledge that you already have is already enough. You have already been equipped with everything that you have, everything that you need in order to teach your children. So sometimes we sort of have a lack of confidence in that way. We feel like we can't teach them because we don't have what we need, but that's absolutely not true. You can teach your child with just what you have. So as your children get older, you might be a little more concerned with the subjects that they're in, and you might want to make sure that they are getting everything that they need. And so if you do have a little bit of money, I would definitely recommend that you check out some subscription curriculums. Check out all of these different subscriptions. The neat thing about them is that they are low upfront costs. In fact, most of them have a free trial. So you're able to give it a try, see if it works, and then a minimum monthly cost after that. So that has been helpful. And if it doesn't work out mid-year, because if we're going to be really honest, sometimes that just happens. Sometimes there are curriculum or the plans that you had, they fell apart midway, partway through the year. And normally it's 2 months after 2 months after you start school that you realize this is not working. And in this case, you didn't like waste a ton of money on a whole bunch of curriculum that you can't use or that you can't really sell because you already worked partially through it. So I really recommend the online subscription courses. So, okay, and short on time. So recommendations for being short on time. You're a busy mom, you've got a lot of stuff to do, little ones, just maybe you work at home. Some of the things that have been helpful to us in the past were having old standbys. Already explored curriculum that our family had liked, but we had set aside for one reason or another. I'm like a compulsive curriculum buyer. I always have to be like finding something new. It's a problem. So anyway, you might know what I'm talking about. It's sort of right up there with like cloth diapers or seed catalogs. If you have that problem, some sort of like, need to buy the newest category, you know what I'm talking about. Each of us have that thing. So curriculum has been one of them for me. But in order to save time, I have gone to the old standbys because I already know what to expect from them. We can fit that into a daily routine without really having to change up much. As long as it works for the child's learning ability or how they learn best, then that's a great option. So old standbys are fabulous time savers just because familiarity. All-in-one multi-age studies. So some of you might have heard of some of the different multi-age studies. The ones that we have loved the most probably were Prairie Primer. So it was basically just going through some classic books. You get one book, the Prairie Primer curriculum, and it includes like almost all of the courses all of the subjects except for math. So we were able to take all of the things in that book and customize it to fit us, and multiple ages did that at once. So we were reading through the Little House books and studying things about history, science, grammar, writing, composition, all of those things. We were able to include that all into one, and we saved a ton of money because we really didn't need that many books. It was just the one book with a standard set of Little House on the Prairie. You can actually see them right there. They're like the old school ones from like my childhood. They smell amazing. If you have the Little House on the Prairie books from like the 70s, they smell really good, don't they? Just, anyway, I just needed to share that little tidbit. Sometimes I embarrass myself. Anyway, so those books have been a great time and money saver for us because they include all of it in one study. So we were able to read a chapter or 2 chapters and then like get right to everything. There was no shuffling through books, and it was pretty set schedule. Again, short on time. I highly recommend the online subscriptions because the work is already done. They require usually minimal preparation from me, and also like not interaction, but intervention. I put intervention because I want to interact with my children, but I have 4 of them and we started high school. So there's certain things that I'm glad for them to do independently. So there have been a few free online sources or online subscriptions that we could have done, but my younger children prefer doing things in workbooks and with me. And so I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful that I get that time with them still. And my older girls are studying a little more independently and getting those courses that we would like them to have for, further education or their whatever the Lord has for them. So they are right now doing the little more intense studies, the course subscriptions. So those have been fabulous for time and money, actually. Okay, public service announcement. Homeschooling, even with the best plan, it's just not going to be easy. It's not always easy. Sometimes it is. It's getting easier every year for us, but sometimes it's just not. You want to challenge your students. I think I read somewhere that like you aren't actually truly learning unless you're being challenged in some way. When it's difficult, you know that you're learning something. So not that we want to make everything like a great burden, but challenging our students and ourselves, that's a really good thing. We're all learning in that process, and it will come to a fruitful end when you challenge yourself. But overwhelming your students and yourself, that's not helpful. That's not a good thing. You don't want to get to the point where your students are all exhausted from school within the first couple of months or even halfway through the year, and you don't want to do that to yourself either. You want to make sure that you are challenging, but it's still an enjoyable school adventure. It's still a task that you know that you need to do, but you can enjoy it. And I think one of the greatest things that we can know in this is that, so you challenge yourself, but you get overwhelmed. So if you do get overwhelmed and there's no stopping that, that might mean that you need to make a change, whether that's homeschool style, whether that's curriculum, whether that's learning styles, or it means that you need to pull back a lot. Those things do happen. We've been talking about a lot of things like financial difficulties, and some of our financial difficulties set us back to the point where I needed to take on an additional job. So we had a daycare and we had a farm, and my husband worked out of the home. So there was a lot of things going on, and we really needed to pull back. I incorporated all of those things into our homeschool, but they were still a challenging time that if I continued to put so much stress on the things that I had before without like bending or changing, I would have been overwhelmed and I would not have been able to continue homeschooling joyfully. We all would have hated homeschooling through the entirety. So, and certainly we have had seasons where we really did struggle with homeschool. Okay, and the last thing here is to take it to the Lord. So if you are a believer, you know that taking these things, taking your plans to the Lord is probably the best bet. Not that you're going to have everything perfect or that your plan is going to come together because you asked the Lord to bless it, but because you know that you are seeking Him out in a very difficult task. Homeschooling is hard sometimes, and you are teaching your children the things that they are learning now are the things that they are going to take with them into the world. So remember to pray about this first. Not just you yourself. Don't you just pray over it, but pray with your spouse, pray with your family, pray together over it. Choose a word for the year. So in our prayer this year, we chose the word diligence because there are we started high school and we want to be diligent that our children are spending their time well. So the younger ones are being diligent in their tasks, even though it's difficult sometimes for them to keep their mind on the task and to desire to want to do it. And our older girls are being challenged in different ways because they're high school level now. So these things we want to be diligent in. We want to encourage them to take joy in the task at hand and to move forward in that. But it's something that we commit to prayer every week. So that's the next part, is pray weekly over this. So pray over your plan every week. Pray over that word that you've chosen and let that be something that brings you all together. So if you have got more questions or you'd like to look a little bit more on how we homeschool plan, our homeschool planning for slackers, go ahead to the ironheartmama.com and you are going to find some resources and just different curriculum or methods that we take that have been helpful over the years for us. I would love to have you join us. So thank you for joining me now, and I hope that this has been a blessing and an encouragement and that I haven't been too crazy, but I really enjoy sharing what the Lord has taught us and just different ways to make homeschooling a little bit easier and a little bit more fun. So thanks for joining me.